This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to EDIC's meeting for October of 2025. We have September meeting minutes that I shared. I'll be honest, they're not my best work, but they do technically represent the topics we discussed. So has everyone had a chance to review them? Okay. Did you notice that some of them you're like, but what's the point of this sentence? I did. I left it in. You know what? I left it in. So would anyone like to suggest that we approve them?
I'd happily make a motion.
All right. David Kutcher.
I beat you to it, Cassie.
Yay, you're fast.
It's true.
Man.
You're going to flip-flop them last time. So, hey, Cassie, are you willing to take minutes or no?
Oh, I thought you were using AI to do it.
Hell no, dude. I use AI to
Oh.
do very little, almost nothing.
Let me just get paper and pencil, and I'm happy to do it.
Well, that's okay. In the meantime, I got us. So, DK, not DD, moves to approve September, seconded by C. Okay. Our next thing is, there's nobody here from the public. And so we can move directly to updates from planning department. Hi, Allison. Nice to see you / imagine that you're there.
I'm here. Hi.
How's Trix? How you doing?
I'm doing. Thank you. How's everybody else doing?
Hanging in. It's the spookiest season.
Indeed. So I don't have a lot of updates to give. I did hear on a couple of grants that I had applied for. We did get approved for a wayfinding phase 2 grant, which basically will follow up on what was done back in 2020, which the result of that was really just a design. There wasn't a lot of analysis of like where signage is needed and what should be included on the signage, and just an overall inventory of what we have and what we need. So that was good news. I think technically it's still embargoed, but oops, it's out there. And we did not receive the grant for a master plan update. So I was talking with Salem just before this meeting, and we'll just try again in the next round for that. Still disappointing, but it is what it is. So
How much was the wayfinding grant for?
it's a technical assistance grant, so it's up to 30,000. It's like basically the consultants will respond to the state, and probably I'll say 30,000.
Okay.
Cool. I saw that we've broken ground and there are big dirt piles on Pleasant Street by the church. That feels exciting and like progress. I think visible progress is compelling for people, whether for good or ill, but I'm glad that it's begun.
Yes, so they did get their building permit. I think earlier this week. They were waiting for the appeal period from the special permit to end before they got the building permit, and they did get it. And they mobilized very, very fast. So things are happening on that site. That's true. We're still waiting. So the large housing projects, I always have a hard time remembering like in sequence what happened when and if I've already updated you on it. But 385 Main Street is the Growing Green project down towards Southampton, and they're still finalizing things with the Conservation Commission, but that should be wrapping up soon. And I think I had already told you about 11 Ferry Street. They got their tax credits, and so they're moving ahead. So everybody, things are in good shape, I think.
So 385 Main Street is going to be like ready to make forward progress after that hiccup with neighbors, etc. Okay.
Yes, that's our understanding, is there's some
Okay.
agreement that was reached.
Okay. Did I have a follow-up question? I don't think so. Does anyone have any follow-up questions?
Well, I do just want to add one more thing,
Yeah.
because we actually just got the notice. The Main Street Improvement Project, the state finally just got back to us with their like comments on the 25% design. So we'll be doing a public hearing to get feedback from the public, hopefully sometime before the holidays. It's, I don't know, we're kind of running out of time for Thanksgiving, but we were hoping to get it done before then. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully soon we'll be reaching out and looking for feedback.
Okay, cool. That's great. That does remind me, my follow-up question was, as ever, any updates on our school buildings?
They are on target with their like dates of when they wanted to like their milestones, I guess you could say. And they submitted everything to the Mass Historical Commission to get what they needed to pursue the historic tax credits. And so that was the last update that I had, but they're still chugging along. And as far as I know, things are going according to plan.
Okay.
Allison, were there any other updates on that hot tub project on Northampton Street?
No, we've had a couple of people come in and ask about it, and we've not heard anything from the developer. With COVID, there was like an automatic 2-year extension on all permits, so they're good on their permit.
Okay,
So yeah, we don't know what's happening.
Which project
Okay.
was that?
thanks.
Which project were you
Where the
referring to?
old rug shop was on North Street.
Oh,
Hot
right.
tubs.
Right. Yeah. Okay. There's
Mhm.
there's all those chain link fences up and stuff. Like there's something is something there.
I
Well,
think
the fences are all gone now.
Yeah, the
Everything's moved,
Oh,
all
are
the
they?
equipment's gone. It almost looks abandoned now.
Hmm.
Send them a
Okay.
vacant storefront notice.
I think they're just outside of the geographic range.
they are a little outside the range. Yeah.
Sorry.
Good on you. Good transition. Thanks for that, Allison. Appreciate that. At our last meeting and the one before that, we had opportunities to talk about the vacant storefront ordinance. And we had said that we wanted to review the actual language of the ordinance because our concern now in hindsight is that there's a whole bunch of language, not a whole lot of teeth, and who can actually be responsible for being the heavy on some of these things. So I did pull that out. I shared that with everybody in the email with today's agenda. The full text of it is long. 4 or 5 pages. 5 pages. But I think I included in the agenda like the overview language, which is that prior to but not more than 90 days after any ground level street facing portion of a building in the downtown business district becomes a vacant building, the owner shall register the vacant building with the city. A registration permit fee of $500 will be assessed for the calendar year in which the building becomes a vacant building. Registration permit fee for each successive year the storefront remains vacant shall be invoiced by the city to the owner on or before the 31st day of January as follows. In year 2, $750, year 3, and each subsequent year, $1,000. So there's a lot of there are a lot of definitions in this ordinance, including definitions of how a business can not be found as being like a negligent looking, abandoned looking vacant storefront through the display of public art, through the display of a for rent sign, etc. One of the one of the things that you brought up last time, Tom, was that a couple of the storefronts on Main Street are not active businesses right now, but there are signs or displays in or on the windows that make it look like, if you didn't know well, that make it look like that's a place where business happens. But there's really not anything that we can do about that because that's written into the ordinance. That you can make it, as long as there's like movement of the displays at some point and it looks like there's some variation over time, that is acceptable. So,
Can you give a for instance?
Say again, Dave?
Can you give it for instance? Like, is there one in particular you're thinking with?
So
how you're describing it?
the how do you pronounce it? Vonam Eye Care place is not an eye care place. And then there is it the Shark Tank tattoo place, or
Shark
one
Tank
near
tattoo.
that has been closed a while, and they have posters up that rotate semi-frequently, advertising local theater and music shows. But right now I don't believe that there's a business in there. And I think there's a small, what did we say? There's a small for rent sign listed there. Those are the two that stand out from our last conversation. And we talked about, yeah, Tom.
The businesses from the Silver Spoon down to the restaurant, to me, are suspect. And I understand what Dave Gardner's saying. Nobody's going to stand there and monitor and see if people are coming and going. But those are all owned by, that section of the building is owned by Jack Moriarty. He owns the building across the street. And I just don't know if that was the way around it. Maybe the business was there and it went out. So I'm fine. I mean, if we can't do much about it, that's okay. I don't want to switch gears too quickly here, but what about his building across the street? The red dilapidated building?
Mm-hmm. Right. So when we talked last time, our point was that at the stage it's currently in, and the stage it's been in for nigh on my entire life, evidently, it's a tear down, and like that is the only way you handle that building. That's not a thing that anybody's going to take the time to remediate. But also, how do we manage that? It sounds to me like notices have been issued, but we're quote unquote waiting to hear from Moriarty about that. I think we will wait in perpetuity.
Yeah.
So I think that's the part where we were like, what amount of tooth is there to this? How do we conceive of a way for there to be teeth? Because right now we've got that this registration permit fee for each successive year goes up for the first three, and then it's $1,000 a year. But like, how are we going to be accountable for that? Who's going to do that? Does it say in our actual ordinance language how we collect that?
I don't think it does. So I was talking with Salem just before this meeting, and yeah, we're trying to figure that out. Like, how do you, like, we can send them a bill, but if they don't pay it, like, what's the recourse?
Allison, I seem to recall in some of our conversations through this process, do we have the ability to put some sort of attachment lien on the property?
I thought we
Again,
built that into the ordinance.
Yeah, I thought we did too. And we don't get anything until the property's felled, but at least if that's a little something, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's under violations and penalties. Any fee, assessed, or fines issued or levied under this ordinance shall constitute a municipal charges lien on the vacant property to be collected in accordance with, and it cites the Mass General Law. The city will work with the tax collector to remove such lien if it's determined that the violations have been addressed.
So I wonder,
So Gwen,
did we establish whether the building inspector's office has sent such, like, beyond like a notice about it, have we sent such a bill? Because I think in our initial workings about this, Cassie, do you remember when we got that presentation from the lady from Arlington? And she said that in a number of instances, just the receipt of a bill incensed the property owners so much that they were finally willing to show up and have a conversation about something, even though I think at the time it was like a $250 bill.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
true.
I could see that. So no, not to my knowledge, and that's something that would have to be figured out. I mean, it says it's $500 per year payable to the building department. But the building department isn't like, it would be payable to the city, wouldn't be to the building department. But yeah, it's like I don't know if that has to come from the collector's office or if the building department can just do that. You know, we don't have bills in planning and building. There's permit fees that are pretty straightforward, but bills are kind of different. So yeah, it's going to be some collaborative work on our end, I think, but Salem is definitely, I think, wanting to do that. So
I think Allison and
Okay, well, that would be really interesting. I mean, at the time that this got approved, we had drawn up what we thought was a working version of this. And then when it went to ordinance, they reworked it. I think they changed amounts and they wrote in stuff about Mass General Law, et cetera. So I guess I took it on faith that we had a structure within City Hall that could make that actionable. It sounds like we don't necessarily have a known structure for such a thing, but developing that structure does seem like a logical outcome of.
and it probably existed at the time. There's just been so much staff turnover that it.
Okay, so the structure that's really helpful. Institutional memory specific.
Yeah, I honestly probably yeah.
But
okay,
I'm guessing we helped put the ordinance together and the ordinance committee passed it. I'm guessing the mechanics for that, as you just suggested, probably never got put in place.
Yeah, I think that's right.
The mechanics for sending a bill, the mechanics for collecting, for putting a lien on the property, none of that probably got put in place. And I don't know, Allison, does Dave Gardner have an assistant?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does.
I mean, maybe that's someone that could help. I don't know that it's on us to try to drop the mechanics because we don't necessarily know the inner workings of every department in City Hall.
Yeah, no, it has to be a conversation with the mayor's office, I think, to like direct people to do certain things. It came up with the Ferry Street district improvement financing that we were just meeting about not that long ago about who's going to be sending the bill to the property owner every year for their payments that they agreed to make and who's going to send the bill and who's going to collect the money. And it's not as straightforward as one would think or hope. So
that's really useful to know. Thanks. Cassie, you had your hand up.
I have a question relative to the Moriarty building. If a property is condemned, who pays for the tear down? Like if my property were to be condemned, like for hoarders, so does the person pay for it or does the city?
The property owner should pay for it. The city, if they have the money, can pay for it and lien the property for the amount.
I'm not sure though, Kathy.
Well,
I'm not sure that the Moriarty building has officially been condemned.
I remember discussing.
Yeah, it would have to be condemned and like an emergency demolition would have to be like necessary for the city to be able to do it.
I do remember discussing condemned buildings when we were doing this because we were thinking of the photocopy place. I can't remember the name of it.
Yep, Hurriesburg.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, do we want to, rather than just let that float there, do we want to recommend that it be condemned? Who condemns? The health department?
Health and building.
But wait, didn't the building inspector say he saw people going in or working in there?
I thought he couldn't get the name.
That was the conversation before.
We're talking about the building next to Big E's.
Right. Yes.
I don't know the last time a human being was in that building. If they were, they might have been wrestling with some major animal infestation.
I don't know about working in there, unless working was being the building inspector and walking in an entrance and seeing what the inside looked like. I don't know that people have been walking in there to do work on it. Let's see. So should we do something? Should we write a quick email letter to someone about let's get a structure in place? To whom should we write? To Dave Gardner? Should we write to Salem Derby? What is it? Do you have a recommendation, Allison?
I think the mayor's office is probably a good place to address it. Because like I said, they can kind of bring the departments together and provide a bit more oomph and urgency to the situation.
Okay.
Granted, it is kind of a weird time for the mayor's office. So.
Yeah.
There's never going to be a good time, but you're totally right. EDIC folks, would you want to submit a letter to the mayor's office that was specific just to let's develop a structure for billing and collecting fees and potentially putting liens on properties? Or do you want also to include something about the Moriarty building specifically and a recommendation about condemning? Not that we can make that recommendation, but like, hey, go consider this. Cassie.
I think it's
That's
sorry.
okay.
I can't see you guys, so sorry.
Yeah.
I think it's
She's
both.
telling you that.
I think the first thing is that, something along the lines of it's come to our attention, there may not be a mechanism in place for collection procedures when vacant storefront owners don't pay the bill or aren't even sent a bill or sent a notice or what have you. The ordinance is in place, but I'm not sure the follow-up mechanism is. And I think so that's general. I think you could drop that on the mayor's lap. He's going to either go to building or go to whomever and say, let's put a mechanism in place for collection. Then I think the Moriarty issue is a whole separate communication.
So a separate memo from us.
Yes.
Okay. Cassie, what do you think?
I just think we need to do something about Moriarty to poke the bear. This has been festering for years and years, and something needs to get the ball rolling on it. I think we should do it.
Okay. Anybody have a different opinion or a more nuanced opinion or support to add? No? Okay. I will draft something. I don't really want to wait till November. So we could either draft something together today or I can write something if you guys trust me. There are those three options.
I trust you.
Okay, Tom trusts me. Cassie trusts me. Dave's, how do you feel? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of doing, I think the point was doing this as two separate requests. I think submitting requests to the mayor's office about putting the infrastructure in place to actually add teeth to the ordinance should go. You're trusted to do that. I would hold off on the specificity of the Moriarty property.
Okay.
I think we should, because there are other current and potential properties that this ordinance might come into play with as well. And I would rather look at all of the potential implementations of this once the infrastructure is in place.
I think that's a great plan. Yep. Okay. I'm on board with that. Can people live with that? So we'll send the one about let's build this structure, have this structure known, like written down or drafted out. And then we can follow up at a later date once that's in place. Cool.
Perfect.
All right. Oh wait, it's right there. It's right here. Okay. Short-term rental proposal that City Council is going to vote on tomorrow night at their full council meeting. This is based on the kerfuffle about short-term rentals. Allison, what you got?
I just want to update you that the vote is going to not happen tomorrow night. The public hearing was delayed. I guess the ordinance committee needed to approve their minutes before it could go to the public hearing with the full council. Something I just found out yesterday about that. So it'll be next month. There's debate whether it'll be the first or second council meeting. So I don't know which one yet, but I said, it unfortunately is just delayed a little bit longer. But
that's great for us, actually. I did wonder why I had to go back so far in the month to find the actual proposal. So that's useful to know. Thank you. That means we have more than 24 hours if we want to submit support or antipathy. So this proposal is meant to be a response to the kerfuffle about people like an Airbnb renting out a place, not as a formal bed and breakfast, not as a hotel or a motel, but a short-term rental. And so to that end, there are two things that need updating, and that is by adding the term short-term rental to our overall zoning ordinance, and then adding the use of it to the Easthampton table of use regulations, which is how various buildings types of businesses can be used, and the extent to which they fall under just permitting, special permit, that sort of process for establishing that business. So I shared with you the information about both of those. The definition of the short-term rental is going to be the rental of a whole or a portion of a primary or accessory dwelling unit, an ADU, in exchange for consideration as overnight accommodations for no more than 28 consecutive calendar days. A properly licensed bed and breakfast, hotel, motel, or lodging house, as those uses are defined and permitted under Easthampton zoning ordinance, shall not be considered a short-term rental. And then it is listed now in the table of use as subject to registration and limitations set forth in city ordinances, permitted only in conforming and lawful pre-existing non-conforming dwellings by permit. So, Dave Kutcher.
I need some help understanding the difference as it comes to zoning between a short-term rental Airbnb and a bed and breakfast. If I own an Airbnb, and I leave out fresh eggs for them to use, am I now a bed and breakfast?
Well, good question.
I'm not trying to confuse the issue. I just want to know, like, that there's an assumption of facts in this definition that I actually can't figure out where the demarcation line is.
Okay. So I am looking, I do enjoy certain elements of Easthampton's website. This says, well, this is just the application. Where do I find the breakfast definition?
So there are definitions in the state law as well for bed and breakfast versus short-term rental.
Are there? Okay.
Bed and breakfast does require owner occupancy, and I believe they have to be present while the rooms are let.
Yep, it's owner-occupied single-family dwelling, which may rent up to a maximum of 3 rooming units for transient occupancy, and where breakfast is included in the rent and all accommodations are reserved in advance.
So again, if I'm renting out half of my home and I leave eggs out for them to eat for breakfast, would I be then considered a bed and breakfast?
I have no idea. So what if the answer is yes? And what if the answer is no? What is your reaction? What should we do with that information?
Well, if it's a yes, that means that I'm then required to get different licensing through the city. And I'm assuming I also have different, like, I'd have to get an occupancy permit. I would have to get all these other different permits and probably different inspections as a result. I would probably also have to pay different taxes, correct?
Taxes, I don't know. The short-term rentals do also require an occupancy certificate and inspections. So the zoning ordinance is very brief. That's because there's an accompanying city general ordinance that has quite a bit more regulatory framework within it. Basically, it requires short-term rentals to be registered. And right now there's a cap in the draft. I don't know whether or not the cap will stand, but anyway, so yeah, if you register for a short-term rental, you will still need the occupancy certificate and the fire department inspection and health department inspections.
Allison, say more about the cap.
Yep. So it's 50 right now is the cap, to be revisited within 2 years by the city council. There's been a lot of back and forth about that. So like I said, I don't know whether or not it will stay in the ordinance, if it'll be increased. That will, I think, come about during the public hearing and the city council meeting about it.
Where is that information? I didn't find that in where I was looking. I mean, maybe I'm bad at looking.
So it's both ordinances, the zoning and the general ordinance, are linked on the planning board page.
Dave, I will also say that in the Easthampton Table of Use Regulations, it delineates that a bed and breakfast's rooming units shall not include individual kitchens. Rooming units must share a common entrance for the single-family dwelling. Adequate parking must be provided. Transient occupants are prohibited from staying more than 30 days in a 1-year period. So that's different from 28 consecutive calendar days. And the exterior appearance of the structure shall not be altered from its single family character. So there's slightly more detail in that particular thing.
Yeah, the other thing with the short-term rental is it can't be let out to more than one party at a time. So you couldn't let separate rooms to different, like, unrelated. And I don't mean blood related. I just mean like they don't know each other.
Sure.
Different parties.
So that's different from the bed and breakfast definition as well. I think it's probably more than about leaving eggs out. But Tom.
I'm just curious, when you mentioned kerfuffle, did this all pop up because these bed and breakfast / short-term rentals were popping up in neighborhoods and neighbors weren't happy?
Yes.
Okay.
At least one of them has been complained about quite a bit to the police department, and another one was reported by the neighbors.
Okay.
To the building department specifically.
Yeah, you'll remember they issued, was it last summer? 2 summers ago? Cease and desist? Or was that last fall? I don't remember.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Cease and desist, and the mayor overruled it, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because there was nothing built into our ordinance structure to account for that type of business or use of a dwelling, the inspector put a preliminary cease and desist on it, and that's what began this ball rolling. So, okay, planning board. I was on a mission to do something.
So it sounds like most things in our state, at the end of the day, this thing's going to get overregulated.
It seems to me like they're really letting towns kind of figure this out one at a time, and it would be nice if there was some statewide guidance provided. But I know, for example, because I have a second place up in Otis, they just put in place a short-term rental ordinance. And one of the requirements is that you have to register as such with an annual application and fee. And from that point forward, it basically is it's not a problem unless it becomes a problem with your neighbors. If your neighbors complain, your permit is pulled. So you need to be real nice to your neighbors if you want to engage in short. That's basic. Obviously I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically the gist of what Otis ended up with. And I think the challenge here is, we could get sucked into the cycle of trying to reinvent the wheel, but perhaps what we can do is look around for what answers other towns find, what's worked, what hasn't, and maybe start from something other than a blank sheet of paper, which it seems like we kind of are still at that stage. This seems very early to me.
And Dave, I guess as much as it's about you being nice to your neighbors, it's controlling who your renters are. I mean, if your renters have a keg party on the front lawn and you happen to be away on vacation, your neighbors are going to complain, and unfortunately it's somewhat out of your control.
In that moment in time, yes, but you complain to the city Monday morning, they're not going to be able to fulfill their rentals from that point forward.
Yeah.
So there are ramifications for not screening your applicants well enough. Now, sure. I also know, and because my neighbor does rent up in Otis, sometimes you can be the best of intention. You'd have the best of intentions as the renter. They have a strict no one under 14 policy. I've seen plenty of kids next door because the people doing the rent check the box and say, oh yeah, nobody under 14 is going to be there, and then bring 6 kids. So, but that's just going to be the nature of the beast.
I put in the chat the link to the full short-term rental ordinance language from the planning board's page. So now I do see the proposal that the maximum number of short-term rental units permitted shall be capped at 50 as of the date of adoption of this ordinance. You have to register. An owner whose principal residence is located in the city may register to use one dwelling unit as a short-term rental on the same parcel as the owner's principal residence. Additionally, or alternatively, an owner may register to operate one dwelling unit as a short-term rental on a separate parcel in Easthampton. You have to have owned the property for at least 365 days prior to application for registration. So we don't want, that seems like a preliminary deterrent to just buying up property to immediately turn it into short-term rentals. Okay.
That's wise.
Let's see. A short-term rental shall not be rented for more than 250 days per registration year, although it may be rented for an unlimited number of days per year, provided the owner occupies and utilizes a dwelling unit on the same property at the same time. Holy smokes. It is a whole loop-de-loop of the rules, huh? Okay.
Yeah, the ordinance committee met on this many times.
I bet, yeah. Short-term rentals are prohibited in dwelling units designated as affordable or otherwise income restricted, which are subject to affordability covenants or otherwise subject to housing or rental assistance. An owner shall not register or offer a rental unit subject to a long-term lease as a short-term rental, nor shall a tenant offer their rental unit as a short-term rental. Okay, so you have to own the property outright. Okay, well, gosh.
Gwen, I'm not sure. I don't know if EDIC might not be the best way to say this. I don't know if we have a dog in this fight.
Yeah.
But I do feel bad for the folks that might legitimately be trying to supplement income for help on taxes or other expenses or things like that. You know, the 80-year-old person who says, I'm using one room in my house, I can rent out a couple others and make a couple $100 a month that helps my taxes. These regulations are probably going to be prohibitive to somebody trying to get through that on their own.
Mm.
I mean, it'll force more people to go underground.
Right.
Right, but if they're underground, then they have no way of renting these properties. I mean, like, whoever is the inspector in this case, just go onto Airbnb or what is it? Rent home rentals by owner. Like, just search that, you find all the listings. That's not the problem. I think as well, as long as the city and or whoever is in charge of inspections, as long as they make the process easy enough, it shouldn't be a cumbersome process.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
So I think you're right, Tom, that I don't know that it's true that we don't have a dog in this fight. I do think it's true that we are unlikely to have a group level opinion that is documentable and shareable with the decision-making body by the time they have their discussion to possibly / probably vote on it. It might be an independent showing up to a meeting or submission of an opinion on that topic, rather than as a representative of EDIC.
Yeah, agreed.
I can send everybody the link outside of the meeting too, so you have a chance to review it if you want to take the time to think through some of its knock-on effects or things that it excludes.
is our role in this to put together a list of principles that we would like this to adhere to, or to specifically give detailed feedback about the ordinance itself?
I think our role is what we decide our role is, because nobody asked us. We don't have to have an opinion, but we can have an opinion to the extent that this is germane to our overall mission of creating a sustainable environment for residents of Easthampton and for the economy, to swallow my words, of Easthampton. So to the extent that it has that built into its nature, we can have an opinion, but we don't have to.
Okay.
I take back what I said before. I haven't seen the full ordinance. It's actually way more fully baked than I was assuming it was. I think the biggest challenge that's going to occur is going to be within the first 6 to 12 months after it becomes effective, because we could spend a month of Sundays picking through every word through the entire ordinance, and there's going to be someone who's going to try to figure out an end around some aspect of it that nobody else is coming. And I think once we start to see it placed into effect, there might have to be some subsequent tweaks or modifications, and time will tell. But I think if there's going to be any sort of an official take from an EDIC perspective, I think supporting the attempt to try to provide better guidance and common understanding around all of the kind of challenges and requirements for short-term rentals are supported, and we're appreciative of the efforts for those trying to find common ground to make it work in our city.
Yeah, I think we're at that level of making a general statement of support for the idea of making it an allowable use, and to try to find ways to make this functional for our city. So we could do that. Do we want to do that? I mean, sometimes I have city councilors in my ear saying it matters if EDIC has an opinion. And also, like, that's a pretty high level generic opinion.
I think it's worth it for us to put together principles that we feel can balance what we know are going to be on both sides of this spectrum of good neighbors, of the argument that it's housing stock away, but at the same time is hoping to grow the local economy and making X, Y, and Z available, supporting people who need a secondary income. Like, I think we can put together a list of principles that we can say that we hope the ordinance falls within those principles, and thusly give our nod of understanding.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what, I liked those three. They may not be the end all be all, but they are three very solid principles. The idea of being good neighbors, recognizing that to some extent you may be taking some measure of housing out of the permanent residency equation, but it does help to grow the local economy and supports people who need a secondary income or need an income. I like those three. Is that off the dome? Big ups, man. Nice job.
I mean, I can run with it because I mean, like I've had many of these conversations with a friend of ours who has an Airbnb down the street.
Yep.
So I'm happy to take a stab at principles.
Okay. I think so Allison, they're not meeting tomorrow to vote on it, but they're voting probably, like, maybe our best bet is that they would vote in 2 weeks at the earliest.
Yeah, November 5th is the soonest.
Right. So if we wanted to submit something that included those things, I would want us to agree. In general, my understanding from having attended many municipal meeting rules presentations from the state is that we should not be voting by email. We should be having a little special meeting where we agree, where we have a little discussion and agree on something to be submitted for that. Unless we, as you did for me about writing to the mayor's office about putting a structure in place, we say, okay, Kutcher, full faith, go do it. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
My gut tells me, Gwen, that it's okay to vote on this at an open meeting, and then as the details are hammered out in writing, it would be okay to send that around for tweaking the writing, but we're not actually voting on anything. We're just tweaking the document that we already approved in concept. That makes sense?
It makes sense. I don't know if the state would agree with you. Cassie's shaking her head. Yeah.
Which way she's shaking her head? I can't see her.
She's shaking her head to say the state would not agree with your take. Yeah.
No,
we have done this though. We've done this in the past when we agreed and voted on a document, a letter in principle that Gwen was then going to present on behalf of the EDIC.
Right, because we had talked about all the things we wanted included in it.
Okay.
So
it's the tweaking part that's problematic.
Say it again, Cassie.
You can't do group edits.
Right, because that's outside of the open meeting. Well, right. So that's my thought on that. If we were going to go with the three principles that you've already offered and say this is an incomplete list, but we would hope that an ordinance would address these three things, I would be cool with saying, Dave, go write it and submit it on behalf of EDIC. But if it's not the complete list, that's the part where I'm like, I'm a little less okay as the chair of the group.
Okay.
I think the first step you just said works. Have Dave put it together and say, here's some thoughts, may not be a complete list, but here's our thoughts on principles, and have have Dave fire that off to them.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Dave, how do you feel about that? Does that feel too restrictive?
No, it doesn't feel too restrictive, and only if I can send it to you, Gwen, just to make sure that I keep it within the principles that we're agreeing upon.
Sure.
Great.
Yep.
I tend to ramble.
Okay. And I will send you, I mean, it's not special. I'll just send you the, we call it letterhead. It's honestly, it's just a logo and I change where it is on the page a lot. So it's not really letterhead, but I'll send it to you.
Awesome.
Okay. Are people okay with that? We just made this decision without actually saying, people vote on this, all 5 of us. Dave, can you live with that? Cassie's nodding. Tom, you can live with that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool, yeah. All right, cool. That's going to be a Dave task. I will write to the mayor's office. Let's see. We had another thing that was on here. Del Vecchio, we had a chance to very briefly get a highlight about the Chamber of Commerce's new program for high school students to get jobs immediately after graduation. Do you have more that you want to share about that?
Nope. Our chamber board meeting is tomorrow. And
Okay.
John had outlined a little bit of it in the last month's meeting, which was the day after our EDIC meeting. And it's still very early in the process. Basically, he was approached by the vendor who's creating the site. It's actually someone who lives locally. And so, of course, they're kind of looking for a local guinea pig to kind of work with in order to try and to build this platform, and is trying to get the chamber and the high school to kind of work together on this. It was not on our agenda for tomorrow's meeting, so I actually shot a note to John, but I haven't heard back from him if there's any sort of an update. So if I hear of anything new, I'll let you know, but it's still early in the process.
Cool. Okay. Very good. Is there anything that you all know right now you would like on November's meeting agenda? Okay. Very good. Then we will follow up on similar at the time. And if things arise in the meantime, let me know and I will try to remember to solicit any new input for next time earlier than I remembered to do so this time. Okay. Who would like to get us out of this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Ooh, Tom Brown motions to adjourn. Any second?
Second.
Nah.
Dave Del Vecchio seconds. Any further discussion of how great this meeting was?
It was great. Thank you.
It was great. You did a good job, Tom, calling in. We're proud.
Oh, thank you.
All right, everybody. I think we should get out of here. Have a lovely afternoon. And I look forward to speaking with you again in a month.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Thank you
very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.